Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Season 6 of the Choose UCalgary Podcast. For first-time listeners, I'm your host, Montana. In today's episode, I will be recapping Season 6 and giving you more context on my own personal experience here at the University of Calgary. I hope I can also help you on your journey to learning more about the University of Calgary and how it could be the right fit for you. And with that, let's get started. For this episode, we will start by going through my experience, everything that I've done, and then I'll also be giving highlights from previous episodes and what really stuck out to me. I would also love to hear back from you and what you found stuck out to you with previous podcast episodes. Okay, so I am a fourth-year business student and I'm graduating this semester. I'll be attending my convocation, which is your graduation from your undergrad degree, in June. It's really crazy to think that it's been 4 years already. I remember my first year, and starting from the beginning, I'm from a small town near Edmonton, and I grew up on a farm, and I'm the first generation in my family to get a university degree. With that being said, I was definitely nervous to come to a brand new city. I've never been outside of my hometown really before. I've never really got that chance to live on my own, obviously, and there's a lot of different moving factors coming into a new place and meeting friends and trying to navigate all that. So I really sympathize for students coming in. But what I want and what I hope eases your mind is when you hear my experience and you hear all of my friends and other podcast guests, you really understand that everyone's scared and there's fair reason to be scared. But it really, once you get into it, it can be such an eye-opening and amazing experience. So why I decided on the University of Calgary specifically was because of my prior experiences in the city of Calgary. The Calgary Stampede, for those of you that don't know, is a major event in Calgary that takes place every year in July. My dad is a chuck wagon driver, which is one of the events that is held at Stampede. So I've spent the last 20 years of my life in Calgary during those 10 days in July. When I would go to the city, it would be vibrant, exciting, and full of opportunity and possibility. It really drew me into the city of Calgary, and when I got to learn more about the business program and the Haskayne School of Business at the university, I fell in love with the campus. As I continued my research, I toured the campus twice, once before I was accepted into the university and once after. When I toured the university, I found the residence buildings, specifically Rundle 2, which is one of the residence buildings on the second floor. It was the best experience, and I could not recommend it enough to stay in residence. I actually ended up living on Rundle 2, and by far something that I cannot recommend enough. I got to meet so many people that were actually in my faculty. So it was a bunch of business students. We were all taking very similar courses, so we were able to study together. We would go to the dining center, or the landing it's called, on campus and be able to eat our meals together, walk to classes, and really create such a special bond. I can recall when we would all sit in the common room on our floor and we would watch shows together and we would hang out together. We would go out together. There was always something to do. Our floor was also super interactive because we would go and do different activities such as skating at the Olympic Oval all together, or we went to the Calgary Corn Maze where we got to hang out and really get to know each other more. And there's no denying that without this foundation, I wouldn't have met half the people I did today. There's also no denying that this is a huge accomplishment, and I would never want to negate that as I finish off in my undergraduate degree. But it's definitely not an undertaking that someone needs to think is too enormous or to be afraid or worried about. First year Montana really felt all of those emotions, from finding a class on campus to passing the class and caring about my courses and wanting to make sure that I did well from an academic standpoint, or just making friends and connections. I wish I could just tell her to enjoy the adventure. I fell in love with so many of my classes, and I'm very proud to be a student at the Haskayne School of Business. Since I loved so many different concentrations and classes that the business school had to offer, I never actually ended up picking a major. I stayed in what is known as commerce. So that can really be personalized for my degree, and I can take a little bit of everything, which I really enjoyed. All the programs that are offered at U of C are super customizable, and you can really personalize your wants and needs with what you find interesting. For example, in my first year, some of the option courses that I take were in law and society. This would end up being a minor that I would add to my degree at the end of my first year, and I met so many different people as this is in the social science realm and really got to make my degree a lot more well-rounded. To this day, I haven't stopped learning about different opportunities, classes, and facilities that the University of Calgary has to offer. In fact, this past semester in the fall, I stumbled upon the Embedded Leadership Certificate program that I realized could be added to my degree. It could not have worked out better, as many of my classes that I had taken previously were already applicable to the certificate. I found this out in one of my MGST or managerial study classes. Our professor had put on an ad for the certificate, and I ended up taking classes in leadership and really developing myself, not only as a person, but a lot of my networking skills and just how to be an ethical leader, a transformational leader, and so much more. I also took a class called Leadership 501. This class that I'm actually currently in was by far the most interactive class I had. It was very small, about 18 of us students, but it allowed for all of us to become really close. I got to know everyone's name, which I think is something very misleading about big universities, is that, there are big lecture halls, and there is, and it is a big university, and I think that's something that we can be proud of, to know that there is such a large community, but you really can find community within a community. And this certificate really helped me do so as well. As I sit here and I talk about all the great things about the university, I think what it always comes back to for me is the people. I actually wrote a blog post about this and about how my friends at my university are by far the best part of my 4 years here. And a lot of them were actually featured on the podcast. Starting from episode 1, where I interviewed Aiden, who was the season 4 and 5 host of the Choose UCalgary podcast. I love how candid she is about her experience, and I loved hearing more about what she told herself looking back at her 4 years as we both met on the first day of classes. Here's what she had to say.
Looking back at my old self, I would tell her that everyone just wants to see you succeed. Everyone wants to help each other, and it's so uplifting being able to have that support around you. And I was nervous because...
To hear more about what Aiden had to say, feel free to look back at our old episodes of Season 6, Episode 1. Moving along, I then did an interview with Megan. For this week's episode of Who Inspired You at the University of Calgary comes from Elizabeth, who is studying social work here at the University of Calgary. And she could not narrow it down to one individual. Elizabeth said she's been inspired by so many people at the University of Calgary and in general has been inspired by the university itself. The University of Calgary makes big dreams feel attainable, and every time she steps onto campus, she feels a sense of inspiration to do something great. I think this is a great way to close out the segment of Who Inspired You at the University of Calgary. And remember, we cannot wait to see who inspires you. And she talked about making friends in first year. As I said, this has kind of been a big topic and theme of this episode. And here's what she did to try to make friends in university.
Yeah.
How do you think future students should try to go about that?
I think one of the best ways sometimes I found is playing dumb in classes.
Okay.
A little bit. It sounds weird, but hear me out.
Megan's a really close friend of mine, and I'm very lucky to have met her in my first year. What she goes on to say is she basically met people by asking them questions in classes or even just asking them for a pencil. Small things like that can really open up a lot more conversation, whether it's talking about other classes you're in, course content, and you can really start building a friendship. For me, I met Megan when I was in residence, as she was in the same building, Rundle, as me. She was by far one of the nicest people I have ever met. I am in awe of all of the amazing things she's done with her degree and her passion for education. To learn more about her passion for education, look at Season 6, Episode 3 of the Choose UCalgary podcast. Following Megan's episode, I then got the opportunity to go and check out the company Revita, which is an energy tea drink company based out of Calgary. The CEO and co-founder, Mitch, was actually a U of C alumni alongside of his co-founders that are also U of C alumni. They told me their story, I got to tour their facilities, and I really got to understand that your university degree and what you specialize in does not need to define you. I think that this is a very common misconception about university, that you have to find what you like and pursue that concentration or faculty. Although this is a completely viable option, and if you find what you love and you want to be in that field, a university degree is a great way to do so. But they all came from different backgrounds and were able to start an energy tea drink company. Here's Mitch on a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we went from geophysics, nursing, and petroleum engineering to selling tea. It's definitely a 180. And
Definitely.
we're all proud UC graduates. Yeah.
This might have been my favorite episode to record. You really got to learn not only about an amazing Calgary-based company, but you also got insight as to life after your undergraduate degree, which is something that I've definitely been thinking about lately as I end mine. To learn more about Mitch and his company and what he's done since his degree has ended and his experiences during his undergraduate degree, listen to Season 6, Episode 4 of the Choose UCalgary podcast. The next episode that I really am excited to highlight is my episode with Claire, who is currently studying abroad in Vienna. Claire has been another best friend of mine since first year, and I met her alongside Aiden, who is the former host, as I've previously said, and Claire and I were in the same residence building and on the same floor. She is pursuing a degree in business as well, and she will actually be finishing up her degree while she is studying in Vienna. Claire is extremely driven, she is extremely hardworking, and I'm very lucky to have met her in my first year. We were able to tackle a lot of different challenges together and have some of the best times together, even though she was only in Calgary for a short period of time. She is someone that I know will be in my life forever. And again, this is why I really am so grateful to have chosen the University of Calgary, because without this and these opportunities, I would have never, ever met her. We also come from extremely different backgrounds. As I mentioned prior, I'm from a small rural Alberta town, and she is from Kamloops in BC. We have very different views on different topics, and we definitely can butt heads. But I think it's very important, especially when you are about to start an undergraduate degree, to be very open to other people's opinions, because you can truly learn so much. Here are 3 words that Claire used to describe her journey at the University of Calgary.
So the first word I would definitely say would be valuable, because I think any university degree is extremely valuable in anyone's life. The next one is memorable, because along with the university experience comes with, meeting new people, doing different things, and creating those everlasting memories. And the last one would probably be eye-opening. I think going to the University of Calgary was a very eye-opening experience. It taught me, different ideas of future career paths. It taught me a lot more about myself, and it just really showed me what the world has to offer.
To hear more, check out Season 6, Episode 6 of the Choose UCalgary podcast. I could genuinely talk about all these episodes for hours. I've been extremely lucky to have some amazing guests on the podcast, and I want to thank each and every one of them for their time and for allowing us to all have an insight into their experiences at the University of Calgary. Another aspect of this podcast that I loved while I was hosting and producing Season 6 was the segments that I did in the middle of every episode, where I would have a student talk to me about who inspired them at the University of Calgary. These were really fun to do, as I was able to talk to a larger array of students and get to hear whether it was faculty members or professors, and understand how they were influenced by that person. To read about a recap of all of these different segments, there's actually a blog post up on the Future Students University of Calgary webpage, where I go over all of the past segments, and I also talk about segments that weren't aired. It was a great way to really understand how other people were experiencing the University of Calgary and who inspired them through their eyes. I've now finished up classes, and I'm studying for my exams and final papers, and it's given me a lot of time to reflect. I've went through old memories and remembered all of the amazing times and experiences I've had at the University of Calgary. I cannot recommend this institution enough. It's truly been such an eye-opening experience. The only other thing that I will say is I do wish I would have went and done more clubs and been a part of a lot more activities. I definitely think that I got caught up with my friends, and although that was super fun, and with my studies, obviously, there are so many different clubs that you can join at the University of Calgary, or even just intramural teams that can really get you out and meeting more people. Speaking of meeting more people, a lot of my current best friends at the University of Calgary are all from different faculties. As I said, I'm in business, but I have friends in engineering, archaeology, natural sciences, biological sciences, and many, many more. I definitely think that this is a hard thing to realize when you're at the university, because you can definitely just go to your classes, meet people there. But because of my residence experience and just even business students that I met, I was able to meet friends of friends and really create a very good foundation for myself here in Calgary. And those friends I actually talk about in one of the blog posts about making friends outside of your faculty. I think this is an extremely important part of someone's university degree, and it's definitely allowed myself to gain even more different perspectives and really enrich my degree overall. To finish off this episode, I really just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to anyone who has listened one of these episodes, or if you've been here from the beginning. I hope that I've really been able to help you understand a little bit more about the University of Calgary and how it could be the right fit for you. As my journey comes to an end, I hope yours is just beginning. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us via our Instagram or Facebook page, all linked in the description below. This will be the last time, but thank you so much for tuning in to the Choose UCalgary podcast. Thank you and goodbye.